and welcome to Beginning Knitting 103 or 4. I'm not sure which. Days are getting blended together here. I'm sure we're all in the same position. I put my Alabama jacket on today in hopes that we're going to get a college football season. I'm going to be optimistic and keep working toward that. So roll tide. Anyway, for our lesson today, we are going to begin talking about working with circular needles. Some of you may be on circular needles now, but you're using them as straight needles. Today we're going to learn how to, exactly what the great thing about circular needles is. And there's a lot of wonderful attributes, and hopefully those of you who haven't used circular needles will give it a try. So today's project is going to be this cowl, which is nice, not for today because it's kind of warm, but for in the winter. And this cowl is particularly nice because you can wear it like that, or you can turn it inside out and wear it like this. There's no right or wrong, so that's kind of cool. You have all the skills, take this off, you have all the skills that you need to know in order to make this, with one exception. We have to teach you how to join in the round. Today's cowl was made with this Ella Rae Cozy Alpaca Chunky. It is knit on anywhere between a size 9 and a size 10.5 needle. I used a size 10.5 because I want it to drape. If you use a 9, your stitches are going to be a little closer together and a little tighter, so your cowl has a little more structure. And if that's the look you're going for, that would be great. But you can use any of those size needles. It comes in these 5 colors. We've got tan, burgundy, blue, let's call that rose, and purple. Unfortunately, the dark purple is out because I used most of it. And if you would be interested in making your cowl in any one of these yarns, just give us a call, reference this video. We'll be happy to set you up. Remember, free shipping anywhere in the United States, free delivery within 10 miles of the shop, and curbside pickup for anything that you should schedule. We're trying to be an all-service shop. Now, what I'm going to be working with today is another Ella Rae yarn, and this is called Cozy Soft Chunky. This particular Ella Rae goes for $13.30, and you only need one of these. This is a one skein project. And this second Ella Rae goes for $8.80. So there's quite a nice price differential, and the difference in the product is not very severe. You're going to like it either way. They're soft and squishy and feel really good. Same deal, anywhere between a size 9 and a 10.5 needle. And this yarn comes in a lot of colors. I'm showing mint, blue, this lovely variegated with, we got some lime green and some kind of like periwinkle and blue, baby pink, deep pink, and pearl gray. But if you're interested in using one of these yarns, you can give the shop a call or email us, and we can give you even more colors that it comes in. But those are the yarns that I'm using. If you choose to use something different, great. Not a problem. You can use any weight yarn for this cowl that you want to, but I wouldn't go any lighter weight than a size 5 needle, which would be a DK. Otherwise, you're just going to be knitting forever, and it's going to take a long, long time if you're knitting on really fine yarn. But from a DK on a size 5 all the way up through one of these heavier Aran weight kind of chunky yarns, which goes to a 10.5, it will all work. But just try to make sure that you have the right size needle with the right size yarn. It's all that information is contained on the label of your yarn. You have to read it. It will tell you what size needle you should be using. And if you don't know, give us a call, and we will be happy to help you. And if we are not here when you put your call in, leave a message. We are returning messages. It's actually, you get a quicker response if you email us. So what you are going to do to start this cowl is take your needle, put a slip knot in there, and go ahead and cast your stitches on. If you are unfamiliar with cast on, you can go back and refer to the videos that I think that was in the first video, the knitting one, where we did cast on and the knit stitch. So some of you may have gone further along in your knitting and looked at other cast on methods. Doesn't matter which one you're using. But whatever you're doing, whatever size weight, whatever size needle, you are going to want to cast on stitches that can be, whatever number you put on needs to be divided by 3. So here's an interesting tip. I am a math teacher, high school math teacher, and I always tell my kids, if you want to look at a number and know if it can be divided by 3, just add the digits together. And if that can be divided by 3, then your big number can be divided by 3. For example, let's say you said, okay, I'm going to put 306 stitches on this. I wonder if that will be divisible by 3. Well, 3 plus 6 is 9, and 9 is divisible by 3, so 306 will be divisible by 3. So there's your math lesson for the day. All right, I put, for this size cowl, this size circumference, I put 102 stitches on. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 is divisible by 3. And now that I have the, I just feel so funny teaching math. Now that I have the stitches on, we want to join in the round. Now this is the tricky part. If you are looking at a pattern, your pattern will say, be careful not to twist your yarns. When you put your yarn together, you want the edge of the cast on stitches to either all be outside the needle or inside the needle, but not both. That you have to pick one or the other. So for this cast on, I am going to pick inside. I'm straightening all my stitches out. Kind of have to pull them apart, get them the way you like them, and then you'll be ready to go. The more stitches you have on this, the more difficult it is to do. Now, 102 stitches is not that many stitches, and I can get that, and I've got it so they're all going to the inside. Once you put them there, they usually stay. But here's a trick. If you just knit one row, like you're doing flat knitting, it's much easier to get your stitches so they're not twisted. What we don't want, and I think Suzanne can get a picture of this, we don't want these stitches all on the top of the needle and then the yarn to twist and have stitches on the bottom of the needle, because that's going to give you, a twisted end product, and it won't work. You'll never get it on. We have a great customer in the store that did that with a cowl once, and she thought that was what it was supposed to be happening, and it wasn't. It was just a sad day. So once you get all those stitches the way you like them, and with this particular cast on, it's a little more difficult than if you use a more structured cast on, but you can do it. If you are having trouble doing it, again, knit one row, and then we'll join. Okay? All right. So in order to join these stitches, you're going to take your pesky tail. We don't want that. You're going to take your yarn that's attached to your skein of yarn. That's your working yarn, and that's going to be in your right hand, on your right hand. All right? Then you are going to need a stitch marker. Now, once you get into this knitting thing, you are going to find that these become very important to you. They're a little bit like gold. Everybody loves a stitch marker, unless you don't. I collect these, and if I'm in a yarn shop and don't feel like spending money on yarn, I always buy some stitch markers. These are very simple stitch markers. They're by Cocoa Knits. They're outstanding. I love them. But you can use like an O-ring if you have an interest in plumbing or something like that, as long as you have a inner circle that will go over your needle. You just want to put it on and it'll be right there. And then some people use, they'll just make a loop of yarn, a different color yarn, and tie that on there and slide it every time we get to it. It doesn't really matter as long as there's something there on the right hand needle that marks the beginning of your round. Because as you're knitting around and around and around and around on these needles, you don't want to stop halfway through. You'd have a lopsided cowl or a lopsided sweater or whatever you're making. So you want to make sure you finish the round. That's what that does. Now that we have our stitch marker on our right needle and our working yarn in our right hand, we are just going to knit. You're going to take your right needle, you're going to insert it from the front to the back, making that X. You're going to take the working yarn, wrap it around, and do your knit stitch. And now they're joined. You've made this circumference here. So that's cool. That's why circular needles have really come on in popularity, because you can knit this whole cowl and you don't have to have a seam in it. You don't have to sew it together. So it's very, very nice. Another thing about circular needles, circular needle knitting, is that if you're going to be doing the stockinette stitch, which you've all practiced, which is knitting on the right side, purling on the wrong side, you don't have to do that anymore. When you work in the round, you can get a stockinette stitch by just knit, 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 knit. Sometimes it seems like forever, and you're making this big long tube, whether it's the body of a sweater, the beginning of a hat, a cowl. Very simple to do. You don't have to change from knitting to purling depending on the side of the fabric you're on. So we knit our first stitch, and the pattern for this cowl is really simple. We're almost done here. You're going to knit 2 stitches, bring your yarn in front, and you're going to purl a stitch. Your first row off of that you do is always the hardest. No, I got a split stitch here. There we go. And then you're going to go back, and you're going to knit 2 and purl 1. So knitting 2 and then purling 1. And this makes a really soft, stretchy ribbing. And we talked about ribbing in our last discussion. Bring your yarn to the back, and you're just going to go all the way around. Knit 2, purl 1. Knit 2, purl 1. That's why it has to be divisible by 3. So when you get to the end of the round, you will have purled a stitch and you'll be ready to knit again. When you're knitting in the round, whatever is the stitch below you is what you're going to be doing on that row. This is just knit 2, purl 1 for as long as you want the length of the cowl. And I can't tell you how many rows I did this, unless I took the time to count them, which nobody wants to watch me do this now. But, you know, it'll start to come down and you'll start to see, oh, that's not long enough. I want it to, you know, fall a little bit. So you'll do a little more length. Stop whenever you want, but make sure you stop when you get to this stitch marker. Every time you get to the stitch marker, you just pass it from the left needle to the right needle and keep on going. Whatever the stitch below you was done in, you do it again. If the stitch below you is a knit stitch, you knit it. If the stitch below you was a purl stitch, you purl it. Very simple, very cool cowl, really nice and comfortable. I have about 5 of these in different colors. I like this length and this width. But if you wanted to do one of those ones where you drape it twice, then you are going to need to cast on a lot more stitches. So this circular needle has a 16-inch cord. If you want to make this bigger and make like an infinity cowl, you're going to need a cowl that has, a needle that has like a 24-inch cord or a 32-inch cord. So it'll hold more stitches. That's all up to you. If you have any questions at all about what am I supposed to do, you can email us, you can Facebook us. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have. But it's a really simple first project to work in the round. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're enjoying all of this adventure. I've loved talking to you these days. Thank God I have a good editor because the outtakes have really been quite explicit. But I really appreciate you watching this. I hope you like it. I hope when we get back to whatever the new normal is, you'll give the shop a call and sign up for a live class, or at least come in and show me what you've done. Post this. Let us know. We're so excited about having new knitters in our group. And I've got a couple of young people that are doing it, young, like 9, 10, 11, that I'm just thrilled to be able to pass this on to another generation. And I really appreciate all of the kind feedback and the great response these have gotten across the board, not just for my classes, but for everybody's classes. We cannot thank you enough. You're the best customers in the world. And someday, I don't know, you'll have to come in and we'll have to give you a hug. I hope we can do that soon. Thank you again very much. Again, questions, email us, call us. We'll get right back to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.